It's Book Lovers Day, so what better day to share with you 5 books that I love. I have picked out 5 books that I absolutely love. At sometimes they might be at the top of my list, at other times they might not be. But they're definitely always books that I absolutely love. It was very, very difficult to narrow this down to only 5. So if there's something on here that you're surprised by, or there's something missing that you expected to find on my list, then let me know in the comments below. 5 books. The first book is a classic in every sense of the word. It is Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. I had a really hard time picking which Jane Austen book to put on this list. They all belong here. I love all of them for different reasons. But Pride and Prejudice was my first love. It's the first Jane Austen book that I fell in love with. It's the first one that I probably sat down and read, I think, from memory. It's the first Jane Austen book that I read. So therefore it was probably the first classic written for adults that I read. So Jane Austen, how can you not have Jane Austen on a list of books that we love? So that's the first book. Book 2, for something a little bit different. I've gone for something quite modern. It's an Australian book, and some people may know the story of this book through an adaptation, a movie adaptation starring Kate Winslet. But the book, so much better. As with a lot of these adaptations, the ending was changed. And while it didn't take away from my love of the story in the movie, I personally, the book is so incredible. The caricatures, the heightened sort of heightened sense of these characters is just wow. It is The Dressmaker by Rosalie Ham. I cannot recommend this enough. I love this every single time I reread it. I actually went and bought another copy of it recently. This is the newer copy, I think, because the original copy that I have is full of highlighted bits, because this I studied in high school, and absolutely love it. Cannot recommend it enough. Book 3 on my list of books that I love, again, is another book that I came across when I was in high school, the year before The Dressmaker. This is by another Australian author, so representing. It is not the most well-known book by this particular author, but I personally love it more than the more well-known version. I think there's so much about it, the way that it explores family dynamic, mental health, just general fitting in. I felt this was a story that I could connect with when I was in high school, and even now reading back on it, I can still connect with it. So I highly recommend Saving Francesca by Melina Marchetta. Melina is also the author of Looking for Ella Brandy, which is a very, very well-known Australian book with a movie. But I personally think Saving Francesca, her follow-up book, about different characters, but similar kind of original setup, is the better book. So give this one a go and see, because I absolutely love this. It's about Francesca and her friends, and I cannot recommend it enough. Book 4, moving into the fantasy space, because I do love myself a little bit of fantasy, but this is a book that I first read in grade 5, I think, so in primary school. And since I have continued on, and this person, the author of this book, is probably my favorite author of all time. Still read her books and demolish them day after day, not every day, but it is one of those books that when I'm in a really bad mood, I will pick up any of her books and I will be happy. But this was the first one of her books that I read, and I read it around about the same time that Harry Potter came out, so it's not Harry Potter. I read it around about the same time that Harry Potter came out, and I loved Harry Potter, but this, a female protagonist who didn't fit the mold, and was a little bit quieter but stood up for herself. I just adore it. So that book is by Tamora Pierce and it's called First Test. It's the first book in the Protectors of the Small Quartet, and I think Caladri of Minderland is an incredible character. I absolutely adore Alana, who is in Tamora Pierce's original quartet, but I read Caladri first, and I still think that this book is just the best thing. This whole quartet and everything around it, I absolutely love. I love this book. Read it. Tamora Pierce doesn't get enough love. She's a legend in her own right. So go check this one out. The last book, although I've only got the last book is 6 books in one. But that's true. It is 6 books in one. It is the epitome of fantasy. I don't think anyone would be overly surprised to find out that someone who loves fantasy rates this as one of her most loved books. I only have the first of the books here, but the others are sitting on, you can see there's a gap in my bookshelf where this belongs. This is the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, but the whole Lord of the Rings series is it's a work of art. It changed fantasy. It changed my reading habits. I probably read this. I think I read this in primary school. Around the same time I was reading Tamora Pierce and Harry Potter, I was also looking at this. It was one of the first books that I wanted to read. And this book, I just absolutely love this edition. It's one of the new editions. I bought it special. I bought it especially, and it's absolutely beautiful. It doesn't give it justice looking at it this way, but it's just full of these incredible images. It's just a wonderful book. If you've never read it, if you've only watched the movies, or you haven't given it a go because you've heard that it's too dense, or the writing style is too old-fashioned, I think you just have to give it a go. There's probably 2 chapters in the entire thing that I think are a little bit of a slog. Right at the start, as you're getting into it, A Long Expected Party is a little bit of a challenge to get through, and then the Council of Elrond at the end of the first book of the 6. I find those 2, if you can get through those, you can get through the whole book. It is so worth it. And there you have it. That's my 5 books that I love for Book Lovers Day.